about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I so happened to put this on this morning. I got my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle T-shirt on.
Oh man, let's go.
I love me some
Yeah,
TMNT.
man. What was the character there? It was Michelangelo, and
he's the one that liked pizza. It's there's Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael.
Yeah, man, that was good times. Good times. So I'm kind of curious, Jake. What have you been? Are we live? Are we going?
Yeah,
live
yeah, we're live.
Oh, we're live. Awesome. So Jake, what have you been up to, man? Like, what's been working for you?
Yeah,
you know?
Oh man,
DeFi, what's up?
What have I been up to? Probably the most stressful 2 months of my life, I would say.
Wait. First of all, happy birthday, Jake.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, happy birthday. You told us.
Yeah.
I did?
No, you didn't. I'm stalking you. You got to stop, Jake.
Yeah, there's some people I didn't tell because they do too much, but thank you.
Well, I won't dox the exact day, but I just wanted to say in general.
Oh, yeah. Dude, no worries at all. I appreciate it a lot. But yeah, so what we've been up to a lot at metrics. We've had so many internal discussions against a lot of things. So we've been pumping metrics V4. Thing is, as we're building V4, we're like, well, we want to add this, and then it needs to launch with this, and then there should be this. So it's literally evolved from being V4 to basically V6, but it's still going to be launched as V4. The problem that arises with that is, even though we have a team of 4 full-time developers, it's a lot to fucking build, a lot of stuff. And then we have to weigh off the pros and cons of spending time fixing what's broken on our current version versus spending time on V4 to kind of get V4 out faster, which would fix those problems anyways. Because if you don't already know, V4 is going to be a complete build from scratch of metrics, essentially. So we've kind of finished off some of the V4 backend, and we're kind of bringing that into V3 and making some updates to V3, which is the live version right now, to fix the issues that everybody has been complaining about. We don't want those to go unnoticed under the rug. It's just horrible timing on our part. But yeah, so in other words, on the metric side, if you're using metrics, you're experiencing issues, you're going to see some updates within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then in addition to that, within the next 1 to 2 months, you will see V4 come through. And you're going to fucking love V4. I really can't wait. There's nothing like it on the market right now. DeFi Buddy doesn't compare. DeFi Orbit doesn't compare. Crystal doesn't compare. Literally nothing compares to what we're building at V4. So it'll be awesome. And I'll show you guys some stuff behind the scenes. But one big learning lesson from our team is we need to focus on not trying to push things out as soon as possible, but rather strategically build the building blocks, and less startup culture, not necessarily corporate, but more just structured. So that's one thing that we've focused on a lot at our team. But to David's question on the what's working for us side, honestly, what we're doing is, yes, we're accumulating assets. We're running long-term strategies. I'm only in one liquidity pool right now, and it's Ethereum and Tau. I exited my Hype to Ethereum liquidity pool after Hype had that huge pump to $30. Now, full disclaimer, I'm still holding Hype, but my pool was so far out of range. I had 10% or maybe 15% of my actual entry value in divergence loss. And then in addition to that, I had a 30% loss in the position. So it was hard, right? I held it out. I let it sit out of range. Yeah, Hype pumped back up. Ethereum stayed the same. That's that reverse divergence right there. It retraces. Go back in range, exit with profit versus hodl, and then hold those assets. And then that was a good sign because we had immense volatility hit. Market starts to tank. And then while the market's tanking, obviously I started to consider rebalancing some of the positions that I was in just because they went out of range and then came back in. And I got as far as exiting them, but I didn't quite enter yet because in volatility, when there's uncertainty, you do not want to enter into a bunch of positions, right? Yes, volatility is great for positions that are correlated and that move together because you're going to print yield during that time because there's a lot of trading volume. But the caveat to that is if you have to execute a rebalance and you're uncertain of where the market's going to go because the trend's going up and then all of a sudden it's going back down and then it's going up and there's huge price swings, you want to make sure that you are sitting on the sidelines during that period until we see some stabilization so you can better plan for that because you don't know what's going to happen in the market. No technical analysis will tell you what's going to happen next in the market right now. It's Is the U.S. going to attack Iran? It's what are we going to see with the Clarity Act? What is the crypto legislation going to look like next week, right? All these things are factors of the market compared to, oh, support, boom, we go up, let's go. You know what I mean? So, and yes, that matters, but just something to take into account. So sitting on the sidelines for now, probably entering into stuff after my trip next week.
Nice. Cool, man. Yeah, so I'm running for the vast majority of the active portfolio that I've got going on. I'm delta neutral. Now I am short just about every digital asset that I can short right now on GMX. So that's been working really, really well. And the cool thing about GMX,
is that your platform, David?
GMX, that's my favorite. Yeah. Well, the reason why GMX is my favorite is because of the architecture of the protocol itself. So you trade against a pool on GMX. And so that means they need like a unique way of calculating funding. And funding over there can rip geometrically, but it's got memory. They call it hysteresis. So the funding rate mechanism can rip. Hysteresis, man. So no, but what it means in practice is if you're short, because most traders want to get levered long most of the time. If you're short and the funding rate mechanism has memory, then my experience has been that I almost always in every short position am consistently earning funding. So the best position that I'm in now is short gold, short XAUT over on GMX, simply because that's part of a delta neutral strategy where I'm long gold in a CLP, I'm short gold on GMX, I'm delta neutral, and it's actually delta neutral because the gold CLP has basically zero divergence since it's the same assets in the pool. So I've got basically a replacement for spot in that CLP doing 10%. And then I've got the short gold position on GMX doing another 15% or 20% or much, much more than that in funding. So that's a great delta neutral play that I've been running for a while now, doing really, really well. I've got a bunch of positions in the PTs, and those are fucking doing great, man. And that stuff, like I just check in every day and it's just number go up every single day. So the bottom line with that is you've got to be comfortable with the underlying assets in those PTs. You've got to know a lot about how they're generating yield and how much risk that they're taking, because these protocols, what they are essentially doing is wrapping a strategy in a token and pegging that to one. So as long as you know a lot about that strategy token, then you're good. So DeFi Don's talking about you got to go to the store to cure that hysteresis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need a doctor, get that checked out.
Oh man. So the PT basket, I'm running some PTs with some leverage, doing like 30%. The gold basis trade is doing like 50%. I'm short. And, I'm getting paid funding on just about every short position, and market's going down. So that's great. I just think I'm only in like really a handful of active positions right now, but they're all doing really well. And what I've been able to do recently, and Jake, you're going to like this, is I've been building stuff. I've been building a lot of stuff, man. Whether it's building on EVM chains or building on Lightning, or building on, building my own software just to be able to track my own positions, or building out trading bot software, or, building software for other, other businesses. Like, I've been doing all that. And, dude, like, I love it. Like the bear market is great because it's so much easier for me to read the market when I've got clear levels of support and resistance on the way down. On the way up, it's really hard because, once you enter fresh all-time highs, then you're just kind of guessing, like, where do we go from here? We enter price discovery, where do we go? But on the way down, it's pretty easy to say, hey, that's support. There's no support until we get down there. So it looks like we've got some more downside ahead. Now, Jake, I want to ask you something just real quick. Why do you think it is that this cycle exists at all? Like, I don't get it, man. Like, Bitcoin is correlated with USM2 for a little while, and then it's not. It's correlated with the NASDAQ for a while, and then it's not. It's correlated with gold for a while with a lag, and then it's not. And right now it's correlated with software. Like, but it's got this cycle. Well, why the cycle? I don't get it.
We're still following the halving, man. I think
I
enough
know.
people believe it that it works out, It's funny, we had the conversation on October 6th about like, oh yeah, historically
I know, dude.
You're like, that's not that. That's fucking bullshit. Sure enough, 4 days later, we see that flash crash.
Yeah.
But again, in current strategy right now, what I'm doing is new injections. I'm bringing into my market neutral side of the portfolio to focus on just stacking assets. And then when we see large dips in the market, right, I'm bringing in capital into the actual crypto markets. And then yield that I generate from my market neutral portfolio, I'm going to allocate to putting into my actual market exposed portfolio.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a flywheel. It's like, capital comes into safe investments. Safe investments generate cash flow. Cash flow goes and buys risky investments or market exposed investments. Or market tanks a ton, so we're just straight into where the market is at, basically.
Express lane into risky assets.
Yeah. By the way, Neuromints, if you ever see me pop in something, I'm not sponsored, by the way. If you ever see me like pop in something in my mouth midstream, I'm not like shooting meth over here or anything like that. You see me get a little jittery afterwards. It's caffeine, guys. Caffeine. I don't take any.
Those, are those pretty good?
Oh, they're so good, man. And I didn't even know, but this is the extra strength. I know how it seems sometimes. I'm against stimulants, but I have severe ADHD. And if there's one thing that keeps me in line, it's caffeine, which I guess is a stimulant.
People with ADHD, stimulants have the opposite effect. So it's something I used quite a bit, but I used old school. I just used coffee.
Oh yeah. I drink coffee. I have my Newtonic drinks, which are like productivity caffeine drinks. These are called Neuromints, like brain neuro, but they have gum too. It's like, I see some interest in the chat. That's why I'm going. You pop one in your mouth. It's like a mint, suck on a mint basically. And it slowly releases caffeine. It's like 100 milligrams of caffeine per mint. And then they also have gum that you could chew if you're into gum as opposed to mints. Great product.
Jake's like coffee, like chewing the gum, popping the mints, drinking coffee.
Yeah. No,
that's right.
Exactly. But it was a Shark Tank company, and they turned down all the shark offers, and it's one of their largest, one of the shark's largest failures. In other words, that since they didn't invest into it, they weren't willing to go up on their valuation or something, and now the company's valued at like $100 million or something. So pretty cool. But yeah, I'd love to show my portfolio, Mike, and just kind of show people what I got going on here. Let me share my screen. So I don't really count the Solana network as my portfolio anymore because there's really only 3-4 grand over there now because I don't really care too much about Solana. But what I'm doing over here, as I mentioned, I have that hype that I'm holding. Same thing with that Ethereum that I'm holding. As you can see, the Ethereum's down a crazy amount. And then I also have some Ethereum from positions over here as well that I was holding. And these are just like exit capital from liquidity pools. Some USDC that I should probably be injecting to Ethereum at this price point, which I will get there. And then over on Aave, I think a lot of people's true colors were shown with their risk tolerance over the past couple weeks, because the amount of people that have got liquidated from Aave, from other platforms because they're too leveraged, is crazy. There's a severe amount of people. And even when we coach clients, we're like, oh yeah, 20, 30% loan to value. They hit a 20 to 30%. We go on the next session like 2 weeks later and they're at like 50% loan to value. We're like, what's going on? They're like, oh, I prepay some of my mortgage or something like that. And I'm like, whoa, okay, hold on a second. Like, you know what I mean? And now they're in a situation where they get liquidated. But point is, what I did over here is I essentially took Wrap Bitcoin. I took EtherFi Ethereum, which is this. And then I put some Aave, some Link, and some Uni as collateral. I borrowed 20K of Go token, which is a stable coin. And then I took that Go and I put it into Ethereum to USDC as well as Wrap Bitcoin to USDC. Now, what happened is I did this months ago. Market tanks. So all of my stable coins buy Ethereum and buy Bitcoin. So then I can bring that Bitcoin over here, which is CBBTC, as well as staked Ethereum, which is just staked Ethereum. And I can increase the collateral because it essentially dollar cost averaged my USDC into Ethereum, into Bitcoin on the way down, to the point where Now I've acquired Bitcoin and Ethereum at a lower price, and I wait for price to go up. I wait for price to go back to my initial entry. But in the meantime, I'm not earning anything in a liquidity pool. Doesn't make sense to go and buy back USDC, because then you're, buying high and selling low. It's not really logical. But instead, I bring that back over to Aave to increase my health rate, increase my collateral, and I wait. And then when it goes back to my initial entry, I restart. And then over here, part of this Go Borrow is also wrap Bitcoin to USDC and ETH to USDC on GMX, those GM pools. These do about 15 to 20% per year in actual yield. But again, there's going to be traders' profits here right now, because traders are historically losing during periods like this and during bear markets. So as they lose, as I generate yield, right, I'm going to be doing 20 to 25% per year in terms of those profits. Yes, my actual initial assets are going down, but we're holding those once again to initial entries. It's just acquiring more assets. And then those are also kind of the equivalent of Uniswap V2 pools as well, or at least very similar, meaning that it's a slow buy of assets. And then I got my Tau to Ethereum right over here that's just generating yield. I got my Hyperlend over here where I'm just lending out some hype, and it's being staked at the same time. And that's about it on this side. I have my market neutral portfolio, but I have not kept up with that really. So yeah.
Hype is one of those I'm really thinking about getting some exposure to. The more I dive into these protocols and projects that that actually pay you to hold the token, essentially, I've really started to see a lot of benefit to hype, and definitely over Aster. Me and David were talking about Aster earlier, and just the terrible tokenomics, and kind of the not consolidation, but the like 90-95% of the tokens are held by the team, and by VCs and things like that, by just a couple of wallets.
Yeah. I mean, does anything need to be said here though? Like, just compare the charts. Like, Hype has done a great job at holding its stance during the current market. So it had a huge, like, kind of free fall from December basically to January. And that's the area where Bitcoin was actually holding its price. So that's the time where that Hype to Ethereum position that I was running went severely out of range. And I'm actually going to pull it up on metrics so I could show you guys. But my Hype to Ethereum position was so far out of range, accumulating divergence loss. And then next thing you know, Hype jumps up while Ethereum stays the same at the point in time. So that puts me back in range and, again, revives my position.
I think I remember you mentioning that like a couple of weeks ago, where, you didn't exit the position because you were so severely out of range. And you, as soon as it got back into range, you were like, and I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what it was. Like, I opened it and literally I was in range for 18% of the time. And I generated like 438 in yield. But again, it wasn't anything too crazy. But I went out of range, and I was to the point where I was so fucked that I just had to hold it out. You know what I mean?
You know what? Sometimes, when you're do it. No, when you're that fucked, you just gotta bite the pillow and ride it out.
I don't know.
It's like
I think sometimes your best loss is your first loss. It's hard though.
That's fair. Fair.
Yeah.
But in this case scenario, hold it out, because again, I'm sitting fully in Hype right now, and I believe in Hype, a lot. Because I think it's one of the main projects that actually operates like a business, makes money, injects back to holders, so on and so forth. So I like that, but it just got more and more fucked over time. And then finally, during that exact period where basically Hype actually started going up a little bit before, Bitcoin and Ethereum started going down by a couple days. So Hype goes back up, and Ethereum staying the same this time. And I go back in range, and I finally close out right over here, this time at a 388 profit versus HODL, keeping the majority of my earnings and a $1,700 loss. And then obviously I was just sitting in the Hype and the Ethereum that I held, which at the time of exit was about $15,000 of Hype and 6,700 of Ethereum, in which I shifted a little bit of Hype into Ethereum because I thought Hype was a little overvalued compared to Ethereum since it just shot up. And then from there, as you can see,
Jake, Mike, I apologize, you guys. I've got to run to another call, but I want to leave you both with one question.
Yep.
What happens to all altcoins if BTC dips to 50K or below.
They all go to the moon.
They all dump, bro. 60% down. You heard it here first. Yeah.
Yep.
On
That's
every
why,
alt.
Yeah. And I know you got to run, David, but that's why I'm not holding a ton of alts. I'm holding Hype. I'm holding Tau. Very small allocations to Ondo, Aether, and ENA. I'm talking $500 a piece. And then 1,500 to Aave, 1,500 Link, 1,500 Uni. And that's the extent of my altcoins. I'm heavily positioned in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then secondary to that, Hype.
Dude, I'm going to be buying as much as I possibly can once we get down to 50K.
Yep, 100%.
Nice, I got to run. Peace.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you tonight.
One thing I wanted to chime in, though, on top of that, though, with my actual exposure, when we saw the dip in the market for Bitcoin, I think around 70K per Bitcoin, I was injecting $7,000, but I still, or not 7,000, I was going to inject like 10 grand. So I took 3K and I put it directly into my portfolio. And then I took 7K and I put it into my Roth IRA because I hadn't made my contribution for last year. And I did that through a Bitcoin ETF. So 7K maxed out Roth IRA, my full contribution from last year, right into Bitcoin because I thought,
and that's cool because that gave you more exposure to Bitcoin, and it ticked that box of maxing out your Roth
and tax-free gains, So when Bitcoin's eventually back up at, probably in the next 4 years, I'd say we'd be at $200,000 if we continue the current path. That right there from 66K to say 200, or I guess my cost base was about 70. That's 185% gain over the course of 4 years if we do that, which is about 46% per year. And that's all tax-free gains. So granted, it's 7 grand. It's not going to make like a crazy difference as if I were to allocate like 50K, 100K, but it is what it is. And I can, in my Roth IRA, sell out of it.
Year.
Yeah.
Well, if you're doing that every year, it's fucking massively outperforming the traditional markets.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I know you're going to say something. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, keep going.
Well, as far as what I'm doing in the markets right now, that essentially wraps it. I'm literally just accumulating more assets where I can. I'm going on a trip next week. And then after that, I'm going to try to get back into some positions with like hype to Ethereum or hype to Bitcoin, whatever is like more correlated, moving together, risk adjusted returns, like yield versus how much divergence loss I could have. And then also hopefully getting back into something like not Ethereum to ENA, but Ethereum paired with something else, because I did take my Ethereum to ENA position. I sold the ENA allocation for Ethereum. So just because, I'm not a huge ENA person, I'll hold it, but not a lot of it. So yeah.
No, I mean my portfolio is usually pretty boring, especially with the way the market is. I'm just in full range pools and lending and locks, and it's just basically sitting on my hands. And I'm in assets that I believe in long term. And I'm just stacked. Like we've talked about. Me and you are kind of aligned where we're just trying to get more exposure to certain assets, not necessarily looking for cash flow. Not looking to, be taking profits necessarily right now. So that's really all I'm focused on is just, the amount of tokens that I have in these projects. I just want to keep getting more of those, and especially at these lower prices. And if we go lower, even better, if I can, lower my average entry, even better, if on the eventuality, not guaranteed, obviously, but if prices go back up, then.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to do at the end of the day. Like, you really have, and we've always had this conversation. You have to choose between cash flow and compounding. You can't, it's become more and more clear that you can't really, you can mix them, but you can't use assets or positions like Ethereum to hype to generate cash flow and then take that cash flow and put it in your bank or something. You have to compound all the income, or at least the majority of it, because there's going to be times like right now where we have huge volatility in the market or huge losses, and we need that income that we generated to be able to help offset that. Otherwise what you're doing is you're essentially parking, think about it like this, 10 grand into something like hype to Ethereum, and then it might generate, say, not a grand per month. Let's just say $500 per month. It might generate $500 per month, which is about 5%. But if you start pulling out that $500 per month, what you're equivalently doing is kind of stealing from your initial stash of 10 grand, at least some of it, because again, you're going to have that divergence loss. And if you don't reinvest an equivalent amount of divergence loss that you had, you're doing the equivalent of just pulling money out of your portfolio. I have a client, or it's not really a client anymore, from a couple years ago, basically. And what he was doing is he started with 50K in his portfolio, and he came to us once that 50K was worth like 15K, and he realized, well, shit, I really have a problem here. And what was happening with this client is he was generating 400, 500% returns, right? But ultimately, he was cashing out all of that income that he's generating. So 50K generating 400%. I mean, that right there is going to be $200,000 a year in income. And he was doing this over the course of a couple months. So when we divide that by 12, he's generated about 16 grand per month. So obviously it's a very quick decay. He's cashing out all of that income. But his 50K is tanking to 40, 30. It's because he has so much divergence loss in these pools, to the point where what he's essentially doing when he generates that income, none of it's going back to pay down, or none of it's going back to compound to offset the divergence loss he had. He's essentially just pulling from his initial capital, that 16K. And while that works on the upside, because divergence loss means on the upside, you just don't have as great gains, and his goal was to produce income. What that means on the downside, when the market starts to tank, which it did, is not only are you basically pulling from your positions, you're not positioned properly. You're going to have higher losses than if you're just in stable coins or something like that. So again, it's like same thing goes with, I was talking to my financial advisor the other day. He was talking about like some real estate investment, REITs or something like that, I think. And essentially what he was referring to is some of these will, produce 5 to 7% cash flow, or like 8% cash flow to 10% cash flow. But some of that money that you're being paid as cash flow is actually like from your principal. It's like excess capital that they had. They pay back as a principal, basically. Now you're in this position where like, oh, I got some cash flow. Sure. You didn't actually get cash flow. They're just giving you your principal back, or at least some of it. And that's baked into what the yields actually look like. That's the equivalent of what you're doing whenever you're not paying down that divergence loss or offsetting it by compounding some of your income.
And that's why I'm such a huge fan of compounding. Because it's, again, it's my overall portfolio. Yes, it's down, but it's not down near as much as if I was hodling, or if I was, pulling profits. So, and again, I still have the same amount of tokens or more on, all the assets that I'm holding. So as long as, I believe in those assets, and as long as, the price goes back up at some point and I don't need the money, if I'm able to sit on my hands and not have to, pull money out because of an emergency or something like that and lock in those losses, it's all about the discipline. It's all about understanding that, and understanding, how the different maneuvers affects my portfolio long term. And again, just basically sitting on my hands. And that's why I love those full range pools. I do have one ranged pool. It's my USDC wrapped ETH pool that just prints money when it's in range. But of course, it's out of range right now. But I'm hodling a bag of ETH, and more ETH than I entered with. So, it's, to me, I wouldn't even mind if I cashed out that ETH. If I just, basically closed that out, took that ETH, let it sit in my wallet, because when ETH turns around, I'm going to be in a much better position. My ETH position is going to be in a much better position.
Yeah, exactly. And what you have to do with those type of pools is you have to be very intentional with which a lot of people aren't. With something like ETH to USDC, you can't just like every time you go out of range or right before you go out of range rebalance, because what you're effectively doing in that situation is you're buying ETH high and then you're selling ETH low. It's silly. So what you do instead is, if you invest into ETH to USDC while the market's going sideways, which is the perfect time to invest in ETH USDC, then what you can do is you're maybe half ETH, half USDC. If the market goes down, you're out of range, you're now sitting in all ETH. But what happened is you use USDC to buy ETH. So you can then take that ETH and hold it to your initial entry price and you'll be at a profit, not just from the yield that you generated, but from buying ETH low and selling ETH high, right? If the market goes the other way, ETH goes up, what you're essentially doing is you're selling ETH on your way up. So you're already, exiting it. And then what you do is you wait for the market to dip and you buy ETH back. And now you have a greater amount of ETH tokens, basically. That's essentially how I run those pools, but you have to be intentional and play it with the market as opposed to, oh, I'm about to go to range. Let me rebalance,
No, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I'm just typing in the chat. Somebody was asking me, what I felt was the best liquidity pools right now, and just the ETH USDC pools. I don't know what it is, but I've never lost on those. And again, it's because I don't get emotional. I don't panic if it goes out of range, if it's a range position, and I just sit on my hands. So
yeah,
it's anything. The reason that I like the ETH USDC and not something like Bitcoin or something like that is just Bitcoin doesn't earn the yield that ETH pools do.
Yeah. Well, to put it back into David's example, right? Liquidity pools are one of the tools in your toolkit. And ultimately, you need to use them in conjunction with other things. Like, we're not going to use a screwdriver to hammer a nail into the wall. You need to have a screwdriver. You need to have a hammer. You need to have a
I'll use whatever tool I want.
Fair. But still, point being, liquidity pools are one of the main components of a portfolio. When used right and when used in conjunction with other aspects of DeFi, you can do great things. But if you only focus on liquidity pools because those are the highest yielding positions, you're going to screw yourself. You have to use them in conjunction with lending. You have to use them in conjunction with staking. And that's one thing we're shifting our focus over at Builder Wealth, basically. We're developing something called the GPS system, which is like our new mechanism for building a portfolio. Previously, we had our DeFi formula is what we called it, basically, which essentially was entirely concentrated or entirely focused on concentrated liquidity pools for the most part. And sure, we dive into staking positions and lending positions, but now we're actually turning it around. It's like we're essentially, with our GPS system, putting it as liquidity pools are one of the things that you use. You want to use them in conjunction with lending and in conjunction with staking and all these other aspects of DeFi and even HODLs to create what we call strategies. And then we focus on making sure that our strategies perform, not necessarily our liquidity pools, because strategies encompass everything, basically. So, yeah.
No, and I know that David is kind of an expert at it, but just hedging your positions. He uses perps dexes and all kinds of other vehicles to hedge his different positions, and that's whenever he's talking about being delta neutral and things like that. That's kind of what he's referencing is trying to be as neutral as possible and not overly long or overly short. So and you can probably explain a little better than I could.
Well, yeah, with delta neutral, what you're essentially doing is balancing delta, and the easier version of that is basically your delta is your exposure to the market. So say you have one ETH, that's one ETH exposure to the market, basically. So when you're hedging your delta, your goal is to basically hedge out one ETH exposure. And when you have one ETH exposure and then one ETH exposure on the hedge, they offset each other to the point where you're now neutral, right? Because one is going to make money on the way up and the other one's going to make money on the way down. But it's an equivalent money that's going to make on the way up as it's going to make on the way down. And the problem is it's a little hard to perfectly hedge your positions and be perfectly neutral, but rather there's something called pseudo delta neutral, where it's like you're hedging, but you're not perfectly delta neutral. You're not perfectly like $1 up, $1 down, or $1 down, $1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's ultimately what we're referring to when we're talking about delta neutral and pseudo delta neutral and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can use perps dexes, you can use platform perps options, like Gamma Swap is one of them. You can use options protocols as well. But there's pros and cons with every one of them. It's like the equivalent of with different blockchain networks. Usually you have to balance three different things. You have to balance security, you have to balance decentralization, and you have to balance speed, right? So when balancing those three things, usually you only get two of them because, it's speed, it's security, which is the same as decentralization, and it's cost, right? If you want to have super fast transactions, but also super decentralized, it's going to have to be a little bit more expensive. If you want to have super fast transactions and you want to have super cheap transactions as well, usually you're not going to be as decentralized. That's what Solana is. If you want to have super cheap transactions and super decentralized, usually it's not going to be fast. So again, you have to balance those. With hedging, it's the same thing. You have to balance yields. You have to balance how much you're actually hedged. You have to balance funding rates. Like there's so many different things, basically. But yeah,
there's definitely a lot of balancing act. I was kind of chuckling. I was remembering a kernel that I had that passed years ago. But one of his favorite things to put in his signature block on his emails, and it was one of his favorite sayings, was good, fast, or cheap. Pick two.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And it's true. If something's cheap, then it's not going to be quick. It's not going to be fast, and it's not going to be good. It's that trifecta. That you're always looking for, but it's always elusive. So
yeah, 100%.
I'm sure you understand as a business owner.
Oh yeah. Our services aren't cheap, but they're good. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Like we pride ourselves on like having we don't have amazing profit margins, but we also don't have bad profit margins. But that profit margin right there goes to pay our team, because we pay our team, top pay, so we can make sure that we have the best
people. Yeah, you want you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
If you want talented people.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I like to look at as well is like return on investment, and even on a day-to-day basis, I look at ROI. Like, okay, how long is this going to last me? Is this going to help me solve a problem? So on and so forth. Like there was something that I was going to buy. It's like a steam closet to steam my clothes, right? And I'm like, okay, how often do I go to the dry cleaner? Okay, I go to the dry cleaner maybe once a month. Maybe I spend $50, right? So that's 150 over 3 months. Okay, well, also, what's the ROI of looking more professional with steam clothes? Okay, how long is this device going to last, right? And it's like, I look at all those things. I didn't end up buying it because, what do you call it? It was like apparently had horrible reviews and like it breaks and then you have to buy a new one or something, or you have to pay hundreds of dollars to get it serviced. Well, it's like ROI doesn't make sense there. You have to look at the same thing when it comes to your investments. Like with our services, we always make sure our clients look at ROI with metrics, with software, with other tools and stuff like that. Look at the ROI. If you have a $2,000 portfolio, I'm going to be honest, metrics is not for you. Neither are our services. So it's like, if you have a $25,000 portfolio and you can bring, say, 20% per year, well, that right there is $5,000 per year that you're doing. And you could pay $500 per year for our pro plan. It probably makes sense at that point. That's what we have to balance, basically. But yeah. And even with this industry, something that a lot of people don't look at is the ROI on their time. A lot of people have $10,000 portfolios and they'll go and they'll spend like 7 hours per week, focusing on their $10,000 portfolio. Well, that's an hour per day, right? And what are you making? Like 30% per year max? Well, that's $3,000 per year that you're creating, and you're spending 7 hours per week. Bear in mind, that is a total of 364 hours per year. So let's do the math. $3,000 per year in income divided by 364 hours. You're making $8.24 an hour. Like, just go get another job. Like, you will make more money. Take that money from that job, build your portfolio, and then start to focus on it. And I'm not saying don't hold crypto if you have 10 grand.
No,
I'm saying
just
only hold crypto, or only do staking, or only do don't focus on constantly managing liquidity pools, stuff like that. A lot of people
that's why I'm in full range pools and lending and locks and stuff like that. It is zero maintenance, because I believe in the assets. I check it in the morning, after I do the newsletter and stuff like that. I check it, see what's going on with it. And other than that, I just work on the channel, which I spend endless hours and it makes me no money, but it's a labor of love. I just enjoy doing it.
Yeah. Well, even with my portfolio, like at, say right now, today's date, probably $130,000, I'm doing about 15 to 20% per year. But the time that I invest in my portfolio is about 2 hours per month. So I'm investing 24 hours per year to make $20,000, right? Which is an equivalent of about $833 per hour. Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But at the same exact time, if I focus on my business, right, there's a different return on investment there. So again, you always have to weigh out the cost, the pros, the cons. I was thinking about getting into some other investments as well, but ultimately the question that arose was, if I get into these other investments, how much time am I going to spend? Okay, well, that takes time away from my business. How much am I going to make here versus just spending more time on my business? So yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm just reading the chat using.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Matt, I haven't seen Matt in the chat for a while, so I was just saying hi to him.
Sweet.
No,
yeah, I mean, that's all I got to share today, man. But hopefully some of this was informative. Hopefully provide some clarity in the market. I'm glad I got to make today's session. It's been a hectic week.
Yeah, like I said, yesterday was on me. Like I said, that tree jumped out in my driveway and got me.
Dude, I hate it when that happens. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, and it was like slow motion, man. I was going like 5 miles an hour or something.
Oh my
and
gosh.
turned to go around a corner, and just the way that the hill is, and I just in the snow and the ice, I just turned it and I just kept going straight. And I'm sitting there and I'm spinning the wheel and I'm trying to hit the brakes and throw it in reverse. I was just doing everything I could, and it wasn't having it. And I just went boop and just bumped it. And as slow as I was going, it just crushed that whole panel.
Oh man, dang. Sorry about that. But
that's good. It's all
and some
good.
unfortunate news, I won't be able to make next week's session because I'll be traveling and there'll be too much of a time difference.
No worries, brother.
But,
you enjoy yourself.
Yeah, we will be back to a regular schedule the week after that, going into March. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I mean, that wraps it up for me, man. Anything else you want to add, or?
No, not at all. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure that we made up for the show that that we weren't able to do yesterday, just because I really enjoy doing these shows with you and David. So
of course, yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I hope people found this informative, and kind of did a check on me, David, and Jake's portfolios, and just kind of what we're doing, and how successful or unsuccessful we are. So until next time. Actually, join us tonight for the Red Pill, where everybody's going to be getting drunk. There might be some crying involved. You never know what's going to happen on the Red Pill.
No.
So, yeah, make sure you join us. So hope to see you tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific. What would that be? 10 p.m.? Yeah, 10 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern. So see you then. Veteran Crypto.
Later.